All right, so let's go ahead and I want you to go through your packet and you're going to get out your big book of factoring. Of course, it won't be as beautiful as mine because I've colored it already, but feel free. The only problem, I use markers. And look what happened. Went through on that page. So don't use markers on the front. All right, so let's look at our factoring. So factoring is something that is basic to everything that we do in Math 3. And I know we learned all sorts of factoring last year in Math 2. And this year we want to make sure that we are really good at it, that we can factor anything that comes our way, and that we totally understand what it's all about. Okay, so let's start with, you guys have been factoring since elementary school. So let's make sure that we can put together our vocabulary. That when you multiply, the things that you multiply together, they're called the factors, okay? And then the answer to a multiplication problem is called the product. Okay, so you learned that, I don't know, 3rd grade, when we started learning about our times tables. And then we learned about making the factors of a number. And some kids told me it was a rainbow thing. So kids told me that they went like 1 and 20. And then maybe they put it on the top or the bottom, I don't know. And then they said 2 and 10. And 4 and 5. Okay, so these are all factors of 20. Now, sometimes we talk about prime factors, okay? So these are all factors of 20, but they're not prime. So does everybody remember what the first prime number is? It's not 1, it's 2. 2 is the first prime number, so we've got 2 and we've got 5. Okay, so say we had to find the prime factorization of 20. So we did that sometime, maybe in around the 4th grade. And we might have gone, okay, 20 is 2 times 10. And again, it depends on how your teacher did it. You might have circled the 2 to say that's prime. And then we said, well, we can break down 10 as well. And then we would have written something like 2 times 2 times 5. And then when we got to 5th grade, ooh, big time, we said 2 squared times 5. Okay, so that is the prime factorization of 20. So with algebra, this is all we're doing. We're finding the prime factorization. It just looks different because it has parentheses and it has variables in there. Okay, so let's head on now up to middle school. So in middle school, you learned about finding the greatest common factor. And so we looked through these, and now you might have, again, it depends how you learn this. So you could have said, well, that's what 4 is. 10 is 2 times 5 times x. And then we would have said, okay, what's the biggest things that they have in common? Well, they both have a 2, and they both have an x. That's it. That's the greatest common factor. So we would have said 2x. Okay? Now, at some point then, they said factor out the greatest common factor. Now, I've seen some students have some very bad habits, and I've seen them do weird things like this. Okay, if there's no equal sign, you can't just randomly divide by any number. Okay, so don't ever divide when it's asking you to factor. So what we do is we say, okay, the greatest common factor is 2x. So I have my 2x there, and then I have to make sure I get this back again. So I'm going to go 2x times what will give me 4xy? Well, 2y. Bring down my plus sign. 2x times what will give me 10? And that's 5. Okay, so it shouldn't look any other way. I've seen students do things like this, which is weird. This does not equal this, so you've got to watch your notation. it's important how you set these things up. A lot of times at younger grades, or math 2 teachers, sometimes were not super picky because you were learning. Okay, I need you to do it right. Okay, so it should look exactly like that, nothing else. Okay, so now next page, it's like, okay, that's so easy. What happened in high school? And how do I know when to factor something? Because it seems like sometimes we factor, sometimes we don't. Okay, so you're going to factor whenever you have an equation with a power greater than or equal to 2. And you want to solve it. And we could also say, or graph it, because factoring helps us find the zeros of an equation. Okay? So basically, anytime you see an x squared, x cubed, anything like that, and you're trying to solve it, you're going to factor it. Now, sometimes the directions just say factor. Okay, then I'll factor. But that's pretty much why we use factoring. Now, the next question is, sometimes I factor and that's it. Other times I have to find a solution. How do I know when to do what? Now, you might think that this is just a silly question. This is where I see the most mistakes ever. Okay, so you can only solve when there is an equal sign. And that is very, very important. Like I said, a lot of times in math 2, kids are still learning how to do the problem or how to factor, and so they're not paying attention to when they solve and when they don't. Okay, so let's say that we had something like, I'm going to have to remind you how to do this because you might have forgotten. Let's see. Oh, there goes my phone.